Hi, moms and dads. Parental Alienation Survival Coach is a division of the compassion portion of Speak Worldwide, which stands for Stop Parental Emotional Abuse of Kids Worldwide. It's really hard for parents to see their children suffering any kind of abuse. You see it on the news all the time when parents' children are being bullied in school or online, and the child is suffering. Bullying is a form of emotional abuse and sometimes, sadly, physical abuse. But what I want to talk about is that pain you feel when your child is being tormented or abused. Sometimes, in cases of parental alienation, the other parent, because of their psychoses, is bullying the child into loving only them and hating, rejecting, and ultimately fearing you. So there's kind of a double whammy of pain. Often the other parent is directing hatred at you and wants to see you hurt and wants to see you suffer. And they make your children adopt that mindset too, that your children want to see you suffer. They want to see you, as one child put it, raped in court. They want to see you go to jail. And it's nothing that you did wrong in most cases. And if you did do wrong, you forgive yourself now, you move forward. You ask God for forgiveness because God always forgives when you ask for forgiveness. But watching your child be continually abused is very difficult. And oftentimes parents feel like we are the victims. And it is very painful, but really the child is the primary victim. Can you imagine what it's like to love someone and be punished for yearning for them, punished for wanting them, mocked for showing affection or wanting to show affection or attention to your other parent? You're shamed, you're mocked, you're made fun of, to the point where it's just easier to go along with the parent who hates. And eventually the children adopt a position of hatred toward a parent just to survive. But while they're doing this, it hurts. And sometimes, like I said, we make the mistake of thinking we're the primary victim when really the child is. But we do have an open wound when our child has been torn from our life. And I want to tell you a story because it's so rich with metaphor. When my mother was in her 80s, she was still doing things like going to rallies, going to the March for Life in Washington. And shortly after she came back from her last trip to Washington, which she got on a bus all by herself and went without any friends, but she made friends on the bus, I'm sure of that. Shortly after that, she had a small cancerous growth removed from the back of her shin, the back of her calf muscle. And it was cancerous, but it had not spread or anything like that. But they wanted to treat it with radiation therapy, a special process called brachytherapy, where they go in with seeds of radiation through a catheter and heavily radiate the area for 5 treatments, and that's it. No side effects, so they thought. Unfortunately, the brachytherapy killed all of the blood supply and all of those tiny blood vessels to where the skin would have been pulled back together and sewn shut. So when her stitches were removed, the skin just broke open. And you could see inside the back of her calf muscle a huge open wound. You could see her calf muscles, you could see tendons. If she wiggled her toes or twisted her ankles, you could literally see the muscles in the calf moving. It was like having a window into the inside of the body. That wound, despite lots of treatment by lots of professionals and lots of specialists and wound care specialists and a wound vac and plastic surgeon who tried to do skin grafts and then artificial skin grafts. Nothing helped. So she went on to live the rest of her life with a huge open wound. It had to be treated every day. It had to be kept covered with a sterile dressing. And in the beginning, there were all kinds of ointments and creams. Toward the end, it was just washing it with water every day and putting the sterile dressing on it. Had she ignored the doctor's orders, had she not treated the wound that way, it was, like I said, a huge opening into her body. Bacteria could have got in there, and serious, deep infections could have occurred. And, you know, who knows, maybe she would have had to have an amputation. I mean, that's how serious it could have been. But she treated it every day. But one thing she didn't do was let that wound define her. She got up every day, she walked, she went to lunch with friends, she went out in the evening sometimes, she went to church on Sundays. She continued to live a positive, full life and touch many, many people. And so can we. We have a serious, deep, open wound that probably won't heal until our children return. And we can't ignore it. And we can't stay angry and unforgiving, because that would be like infection setting into an open wound. So every single day, we have to let go of anger. We have to forgive the pathology in the other parent that caused it. And we have to move forward with our life. Like my mother had to treat the wound every day, what are some ways we can treat our open wound? Well, some of the ways we can do it, like I said, forgiveness every day. Taking care of you. Remember the videos on good nutrition, exercise, pursuing a hobby, arts and crafts, taking walks in nature, the beach. Things that every single person should do for themselves anyway, but especially when we find ourselves with a deep open wound every single day, we have to make a little bit more of an effort to take care of ourselves. Just like my mother had to take more of an effort to not only doing normal bathing and showering, but had to address the wound in a deliberate way. And so that's what we have to do. Every day we have to take really good care of ourselves in all those ways. We have to keep our mind, body, and soul in the best condition and live the most happiest version of ourselves we can possibly be. So that's why we do Sunday services occasionally, and that's why we have the Integrative Spiritual Arts Division of Speak Worldwide, because we want you to restore those lost faith connections and seek out God when your heart is broken and your spirit is crushed. God is near to you. He will hear your cry. It's a broken world, moms and dads, and so there will be pain and suffering. But God wants to be near to you if you just call out to Him. And we must take care of our open wounds. Every one of us has a lasting open wound, just like my mother did. But she lived as full of a life as she possibly could despite that. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. Try to be the happiest, best version of yourself and not succumb to being a mess of emotions and sadness and bitterness and anger. Try to rise above it. Be strong. Stay strong, moms and dads. Hang in there. You're not alone. None of us are.